Hey everybody, here we are again. I have a couple of updates for you. Made some progress under the chassis. So you'll see here on the 2A5 tube, I have this 0.005 microfarad capacitor installed. And I've taken that wire, run it to ground. I've installed the terminal strip here, and I've bridged all of the lugs together. So I have a large ground point here that I can use for a couple things. I've also connected the common speaker to the 2A5 tube, and we're going to cover that on the schematic. And I've also connected the cathode of the first 57 and the first detector to ground, right there. Yeah, right there. And that comes up here and comes up to this ground point. And we've done that. And we've also connected the ground on this 57 tube right here. That wire was hanging, as you recall. So before I put this terminal block in, I had to make sure that there was nothing on the top of the radio that's going to get in the way. So obviously these are where the two electrolytics were. So I know I've got plenty of room to play here, and I can put a terminal strip across here when I do the electrolytics. Plenty of room here. So let's go through on the schematic and see what we can mark off. Okay, so first off, we've connected the plate of the 2A5 all the way down, all the way across, and it goes to the center pin on the speaker. Okay, you got that so far? Again, that's this wire right here. Comes here, runs here, comes right to this point right there. We've also installed this C7 capacitor right here, all the way across, and you'll see it goes from the cathode of the 2A5 to the suppressor grid, goes right across. So what I've done is mounted it right on the tube socket. Alright, right there to right there. So I've got that installed with some insulation. Okay. Next thing we did is we installed the cathode of the second detector right here to ground. So that's done. And that's this wire right here. Comes all the way up, goes across to ground. And then lastly, we've installed this ground right here. This is on the 2.5 volt rail. So that's now connected to ground. And again, that's this black wire right here. It goes from here to here. This is a ground point, right? I just connected this to ground, so it's now a ground point. Okay? So that's done. So the next step is going to be to finish this area. So I'm going to start with the plate right there. And I'm sorry, that's the screen grid. That's not the plate. We're going to start with the screen grid. We're going to come all the way down. You'll see what we have here. We have a connection right here to one of our electrolytics. We go through a resistor, and then we come up here and we start getting into the can, right? Start getting into T3, which we'll get to. So my next step is going to be to prep this wire, get all the connections in place so that I can start to do this. I'm also going to lay the groundwork for some of the rectifier things that we need to do. So here we have the 8 microfarad electrolytic. Here we have the 4, and then we have these 2 resistors again which go to ground. So you can see why I put so many ground points in there, because I've got a lot of ground points on this thing. And then we're also going to work on this one here and get this installed. So that's going to be the next thing I do. But taking a look back at the schematic, a lot of orange, so it's going well. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm debating if I should put the transformer in at this point. There's really not a lot of work to do as far as components underneath. I may throw the transformer in and start to connect it. I don't know yet. I have to think about that for a minute. But that's where we are. So I'll get to that. All the additions that I mentioned I'm going to take care of, and that'll actually help us to complete the 2A5 tube. So that's good. Oh, and by the way, we've got this grounded as well, this cathode, so we could mark that right here. So the only thing we have left to do is connect this 250K resistor. Connect the screen grid right here, as I mentioned. Start to get this stuff all together in one piece. All right, I'll be back. Hey folks, I want to just give you a little bit more of an update. So you'll see I've mounted the transformer here, and I did that for a reason, because I'm wanting to make sure that I don't put the terminal blocks in the wrong holes. I made that mistake with this transformer, and I'll show you what I mean. So if you recall, I had the terminal block mounted here. Well, naturally, didn't fit. The transformer got in the way, but no problem. So what I ended up doing is relocating the terminal block here, okay? And I know there's nothing on the other side of this chassis that's going to interfere. I've also got this, if you remember, this terminal block here for grounds, so I've got a bunch of grounds here, and I've rerouted things. So this is in place, which is good. And I've showed you everything else. I've showed you that I've got this capacitor in place, and all of this, and I think that's the update underneath. You'll see I've got my twisted wires here. I wanted to show you a little bit about T3. So if you look at the schematic, this is T3 right here. It's one of the coils. And you'll see that there's a capacitor in there, 250 picofarads, and then there's a 2 meg resistor at the top of it. Very, very delicate. When I got this thing, I checked it, and of course it was in great shape. There was no issues. So I did go ahead and replace the capacitor, which is right there, and the resistor, which is right there. And I made sure that I had to replace the wires as well, because the wires are all shot on this thing. So I replaced the wires very carefully, and I put a lot of liquid tape on it to hold it all together. And I've just domed it out again, and it's still good. So that means that I can go ahead and get T3 into the chassis and start to get that connected. And you'll see where T3 goes. It's pretty simple, actually. So T3 goes over to the first detector. Okay. It also comes down along here, and it rides up to the second detector, etc. So it's fairly easy. If you look on the underneath the chassis, or let's start at the top of the chassis. So it's going to mount right here. Okay. So if you look under the chassis, this is where the wires will come through here, and it'll be really easy for me to connect to all these different places that it needs to go to. So that's the plan. So I'm going to dress up these wires, because I'm trying to keep this thing extremely neat underneath, and I'm going to make sure that I get this thing done. So anyway, that's the update for now. I'll put another update out when I'm ready. This is Ron. Thanks for watching.